on social media. I mean, this little piece or device right here that has been given to us as the number one productivity tool in the world is also the bane of many leaders in terms of getting stuck on that.
Yeah, and be others focused, right? Because again, right, it's not all about just getting the boat, getting the nice house, because then it's like, then what?
Based on those things, let's review those, but let's think about next time period, next week, next month, next year. What do I need to keep doing, start doing, and maybe one of the hardest things to do, what do I need to stop doing to be successful?
Are you ready to feel like it's Friday every day? I'm Mark Labriola II, and this is the Friday Habit. We interview experts to learn how to bring excitement, possibility, and sweet, sweet relief into every single day, no matter what day it is. If you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, or agency leader, get ready to grow your business, lead with purpose, and build a life you love. Welcome to the Friday Habit.
Alrighty. Here we are, back on another Friday, and we got some great conversations coming your way. And today, we got John Gallagher on the podcast. You know, he's an executive coach, really seasoned. He's got leadership strategies and culture builder expertise, and he helps leaders unlock their potential and scale their impact. And so, you know, he's got decades of experience coaching high-performing executives and teams. And so he kind of blends this emotional intelligence and neuroscience and business acumen to transform how people lead. He's the founder and coach of John Gallagher. What am I trying to say here? I guess what I'm trying to say is this guy's awesome. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he's going to enlighten us. And so, John, welcome to the podcast.
Mark, looking forward to our conversation today. Love the name of it, by the way, too. And as you say, you know, kind of getting that feeling of every day being a Friday, being down here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, living amongst a lot of retired folks moving in here. That's certainly something that they chat with me about on a regular basis, and they don't know what day of the week it is other than Friday in terms of going through that. I got a few more years to go, even though, as you were kind enough to say, seasoned executive. That just means I've been doing this for a long time, and hopefully I can share some
knowledge
wisdom
and the
with
experience.
the
you know, you've been through it all, right? I'm always hesitant,
absolutely.
You know, when there's this like whiz bang guru telling me all this stuff, and he's in his 30s or late 20s, and I'm like, really, how much life have you experienced to speak from? Giving me advice. So I appreciate it.
Let's go. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So, I mean, really, I'd love to just hear your journey, hear your story of kind of how you got to where you are right now, and then kind of just dive into some of the leadership and growth stuff.
Sure. Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity. When I think about it in terms of how, quote, it got started, I mean, for me, I could go back a lot of different directions, but specifically with regards to executive coaching, impact, and leadership, I just wrote about this a little bit today as well. I had, let's say I graduated a few years ago, and I made that decision as I walked across that stage and got my diploma, mechanical engineer, that I was done reading, that I was done growing, that I was done with all the books and things like that I was just ready for life and things were going to be easy. And while things were certainly interesting and exciting as an engineer getting started out, I got my first leadership opportunity and had a mentor sit down with me, and he gave me a book. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to get started with this book. He said, yeah, we're going to go through each chapter of it. We're going to talk about what your key takeaways are and see how things are. And little did I know then that book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell, was really going to start a leadership journey for me that I had no idea. Prior to that, I couldn't have spelled leadership in terms of understanding what it was, but really getting into some of the teaching methodologies that have. And really one quote that stuck out with me was, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right inside that book, I was hooked as I went through it, and it's become a journey for me some 30 years later, really, that I continue to hopefully inspire, encourage, and equip other leaders with some of those things that I'm taking in with regards to reading, or some of that work experience that I've had over those years. and ultimately help them to become the leader that God called them to be. I mean, it's something I believe that they, myself included at times, if I'm looking at this, that we often too much settle for where we are and not continuously look to bear fruit in our own lives and in the lives of others. So it's very important for me to continue to grow on my journey.
It's great.
So that I can continue to bring it to others.
Awesome. You know, our audience is filled with a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs. And you've worked with leaders at all levels. What do you think is the biggest mindset shift entrepreneurs must make, when moving from that solo operator to a team leader?
Well, I get the opportunity to coach and consult with many of them. I mean, there's 3 specific organizations that I'm working with right now that are either first, second, or third generation owners. And I tell you, making that leap, to your point, from owner to operator is something that's very difficult, but it is a mindset. And I think about this, like, people will change when ultimately the displeasure of remaining where they are is greater than the discomfort of the change itself. Those individuals have had to learn everything about their business as they've bootstrapped it and bring it up and go forward. And they really makes it difficult for them to start to delegate, make it difficult for them to develop others inside of their organization when they've been the primary person that has to overcome that on a regular basis. So it's a choice that they have to make, that they say, I'm ready to grow, but I'm also ready to develop my team for me to be able to succeed into the future and have the impact that I know I can have. That's not an easy shift, but it is a mindset that the choice they have to make.
Yeah. So, you talk a lot about helping leaders show up better. And so what does that actually look like in a practical day-to-day, terms?
And framework specifically, I start out with that reason for action. Why is that, reason they really want to change? And the framework that I talk about is, so what, now what, and so that. And it gets them into 3 steps to really define what they're looking to do. The so what is really the opportunity that's there, especially from a business standpoint. They may be looking to scale their business and go to 8 figures or 9 figures, whatever it is they want to go to as a small business turning into a large business. Or it might be something they see in the marketplace that they have to respond to, that if they don't look at that opportunity, it may be something they won't have a business in the future. So that's that so what. And the now what ultimately is the action they must take. I must change. I must improve. I must grow. I must scale my business. But the real reason that I focus my energy on with them is that so that. What's the real purpose of their business that they want to grow? Because if they don't understand what that means to them in terms of that so that, in terms of that purpose, and again, it might be that they can leave a legacy for family members or make an impact on the people that work for them in terms of that so that, or it might be so they can retire at age 55 and sit on a boat and just kind of cruise around for the rest of their lives. But they got to be clear on that purpose, because that's what's going to get them out of bed on a daily basis. That's what's going to get them through on some of the challenging times they're going to run into, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. What do you think some signs are as far as, business owners needing a coach, even if it seems like things seem to be going well? Like, what do you kind of start to see in someone where it's like, all right, you probably want to bring somebody in, or start thinking about moving things to the next level personally? Because I think for me as a business owner, you're kind of the person in charge. You're the top of the food chain, and you're making all the decisions. And a lot of times, if things are kind of humming along and they seem to be going okay, you're not really spending too much time reflecting or being like, oh man, something needs to change. But then there's that one moment or that thing that takes place or happens where it's like, oh crap, like I need to change some things, or I need to level up myself in order to level up my business. What do you see kind of in the trenches there as far as some of those signs, that a business owner needs more development?
Mark, I think you're actually talking about some of the very good signs that I recognize. The specific area that I'm really talking about with folks, and I'm going to use a word here that's interesting to really throw out there, and that's rationalization. That we start to rationalize some of the things that are going on as leaders, as business owners, and say, hey, things are just going okay for us right now. That I don't really need to get better on a regular basis, we start to have that conversation with ourselves that we're saying we're good enough now. And we get seduced by some of the success that we're having. And I often have that conversation with leaders, and that's the space that I generally work in, is that usually a lot of times it's not just what you make, but it's what you leave on the table. What you are not accomplishing as a result of some of maybe the lack of system and process that you have in both your personal development, but also your business, that's keeping you from having the impact that you truly want to have. I'm not in the coaching business to really talk to folks about just making more money. I really do talk about, as my company name, Growing Champions, is that how am I preparing ultimately those individuals that are on my team to have the impact that they want to have again in the future as well. I often refer to it, Mark, as the greatest story ever told. When I think of leaders, when I think of the impact that I want to have, I think of a time when folks are going to be inside of a room and there's going to be somebody up in front of that room and they're going to say, name 5 people who have had a positive impact on your life. Okay. And when I may never know this, but if somebody's writing my name on a list like that, then I believe that's the greatest story ever told. Look, as a man of faith outside of the Bible and Jesus' life being the greatest story ever told and ever lived, I believe as a leader, when we can have an impact on someone that says they've made a positive difference in my life and they recognize that, that's a huge impact. And look, leaders, business owners, the only way you get to have that impact is to be intentional and build relationships with those individuals that you work with. And so that's something that I think they've really got to tie a story
and be
to.
others focused, right? Because again, right, it's not all about just getting the boat, getting the nice house, because then it's like, then what, you know? And we're all going to be forgotten, right? When we die, you might be remembered a little while after your death, but you know, nieces and nephews and children and people you worked with, they're going to forget about you in their day-to-day lives, you know, but it's what kind of impact are you making to kind of carry on those legacies, right? So that person maybe who you employed says, wow, this person made a huge impact in my life. And then they share that story with their children. And then their children share that story like, yeah, it was my grandfather said that he had somebody that changed his trajectory. And it's like, that's lasting legacy and true fulfillment, I think, comes from trying to build that kind of life and legacy.
Absolutely. And you said the word legacy. I mean, it's so powerful. I mean, there's the quote, and I guess as I think through it, I can't remember who it's attributed to, but people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's in encounters that you come in on a one-on-one basis, but ultimately as you live your life, they're going to remember how you made them feel, and that's going to be what they really think of you. Absolutely.
When I was going through your stuff, I noticed you kind of talk a lot about emotional intelligence as a cornerstone of great leadership. What are some of the tools or habits that you teach to develop that? Because sometimes I feel like emotional intelligence is almost something that you're born with. You know, like I see even in my own children, I have one particular son who there's just something about him, even at a very young age, he had this emotional intelligence about him. But I'm thinking that it's something that you can maybe raise or develop in somebody. But what are those things that?
Well, let's talk about one specific tool that I recognize to recommend to almost any of the leaders that I coach. I mean, ultimately, I'm working with them to develop their daily, weekly, monthly disciplines or habits, to your point, that they need to do on a regular basis to be successful and to measure those things. But one of the habits, one of the disciplines I really work with them on is a time for regular, intentional reflection. I do believe that purposeful reflection will produce purposeful action. And they need to really sit down, to your point, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, there's an awareness that has to be there where they can look at some time period and say, hey, over the last week, over the last month, or even over the last year, in terms of my own performance as well as my organization's performance, what are the things that have gone well in my business, in my own life, and what are those things that could have gone better? And it's literally drawing a T diagram on a piece of paper and just starting to write those down. The things on the left are the things that went well, things on the right are the things that could have gone better. And I think it's, a brain dump, if you will, of understanding. And if you can truly be reflective in that space, if you can truly be honest with yourself with regards to what's gone well and what's gone better, it provides you an opportunity for continuous improvement, because then I take them on a journey to say, okay, based on those things, let's review those, but let's think about next time period, next week, next month, next year. What do I need to keep doing, start doing, and maybe one of the hardest things to do, what do I need to stop doing to be successful? And if I can, just like I need to work out to be physically fit, if I can learn to exercise that reflection muscle on a regular basis and look internally as to how I've done, I think that can be one of the most powerful tools in a leadership toolkit that's going to help them, not just with their emotional intelligence, but ultimately set up to be, again, the leader that they were designed to be.
Yeah. How do you help people break through? I see people, they get excited, they get motivated, and they're ready to make a change and do all this stuff, and it lasts for a little while, and then it starts to fade, and then they just kind of end up falling back into their old habits. What are some tools or techniques that you try to help people with in order just to be consistent? Because that's really the biggest thing, right? It's the consistency over a long period of time that produces results. And I feel that a lot of people have a hard time staying consistent.
Well, that first part I talked about in terms of that so what, now what, so that so that is so important. I believe that motivation, as you say, it dissipates. I know that motivation dissipates. It'll wear off. If you just want to say you want to lose 10 pounds in your own personal journey, even the motivation to get to the gym on the regular basis, or to eat vegetables instead of eating the candy bar that you want to eat on a regular basis, the Twinkies, whatever it is, that motivation wears off. But if you know what your purpose is, that's one of the things that's very important. So it's not just losing 10 pounds. It's being able to, in essence, get on the floor with your grandchildren in the future and be able to get up and down. It could be as simple as, when I get to be 80 years old, I want to still be able to take care of myself. And if I want to shoot a basketball hoop with my great-grandson, I'm able to do that. So aligning on that purpose is what I really try to get them started with. But I tell you, to measure that is very important. What we measure, we can manage. And so I have them create a dashboard, setting up goals. If it is disciplines of getting up at 5 o'clock every morning that they really want to go to without hitting the snooze, then how many times did you do that last week? And ultimately setting that accountability up visually, that win-loss scorecard, ultimately, not just for your revenue and those key performance indicators like revenue and profit margin, but also setting up that scorecard for your disciplines and habits. Did I get to the gym 3 days last week? Did I eat correctly? Did I have the one-on-one conversations I needed to have with my team members? Did I go home and spend time with my family on a regular basis? And measuring how many times they do that. I think once folks start to measure those things and see how their disciplines or habits are working or not working, I think that gives them a chance. Look, many of us are motivated by the win, by the gamification, whatever you want to call it. But when you can see that you're either moving in a good direction, green or red, even on your habits, it's going to encourage you to get forward. The outside of that is like a catch-22. I'm a coach. I'm there to point it out to them, to let them know. I don't want to go as far as to say rub their nose in it when they miss it, but ultimately to challenge them from the standpoint of saying, you want to be this leader out into the future. You don't want to rely on yourself. Sometimes you need a little encouragement from somebody else that's going to help you to point out some of those blind spots that you have in your behaviors. And one of the ways that I really do that is by measuring that in the form of a dashboard.
I mean, all that makes sense. It's definitely one of those things that is, I think it's an ebb and flow, and it's a constant having awareness and a constant drive to, grow yourself, be better, and, have that why, or develop that, what is it? So what? Or
the so that. Ultimately, again, I use that as a scripture standpoint. I mean, you go through the New Testament, and Paul, ultimately, he would say, as Christians, we need to do this. And it's easy to tell someone what they have to do, but if you can give them the purpose, that ultimately leads to a journey, bringing other people into this journey, that's what you can tie your story to. That's what gets you out of the bed in the morning and gets your feet to hit the floor without hitting that snooze button on a regular basis. Is that so that?
Yeah, I love that. What are your thoughts around you say you're faith based, you're a Christian, you have that foundation. In the world of entrepreneurship, there's a lot of hustle, grind, create the right email sequence and marketing funnel and white knuckle this thing. And obviously this isn't going to apply to everybody, because if you're not coming from a place of faith or that spiritual angle, then you're not going to be thinking about this. But for me, because I kind of align with you, and so I've always had this struggle as far as an entrepreneur of how much do I try to control, and then how much do I let God work and move and guide me, throughout my journey.
Well, Mark, I would have to say that, I probably have similar struggles. One of the things, and I don't mean that as a negative. I think the reason we have those struggles, if we stay this on a faith-based journey, is that evil does exist. Distractions exist. So let's take the faith out of it for a minute and talk to that entrepreneur who may not be able to use that. The distractions in our lives, okay, are what are designed to keep us from being the leader that we were called to be. What are those distractions and how it's the doom scrolling on social media. I mean, this little piece or device right here that has been given to us as the number one productivity tool in the world is also the bane of many leaders in terms of getting stuck on that. We rely on the text messages that comes in or the phone calls that come in and running to that immediately with regards to distraction. Those distractions exist in many other ways. We're watching for the email to come in. Back to your point about the sales funnel or the pipeline. We put a post out on social media, and then we want to watch and see how many likes that it got or how many shares that it got and how we're starting to have an impact on others. It's just another distraction that exists inside of that space. But as a man of faith, one of the ways that I overcome that, and I still have to always work at it, for me, it's another daily habit. So it's scripture reading for me in the morning. It's a devotional that I read as well. And it's prayer time, that ultimately turning over some of these things that I can't control and know that I can't do them on my own. So even for me, just in the past few years, starting to get some memory verses in there that when I am running into some of these challenges, I can remember that I can have this to point back to. So entrepreneurs, those distractions that exist are very real, okay? And they are designed to keep you from being successful in whatever way you use to design success. So there are ways to turn off those distractions, and sometimes we have to be brutal with them. Like this thing right here. Again, one way to turn off the distraction is to put it on airplane mode for some period of time. I often encourage leaders who have teams to do that so that they can focus on a project and use a tool that I call the 47 most productive minutes in a leader's day. And it's really to set up and block an hour of focus time, but for 47 minutes, and there's no science behind the 47. I don't know what that really means for me.
Maybe we can tie it to some Bible verse that
or the 13. I can't tie it to a Bible verse or anything else. Maybe I can try to find that. But it's different than saying 45 minutes or 60 minutes, how everything's. It's a little bit different to get them to remember it, because if I can focus on something with 47 minutes without any distractions, turn my phone off, turn my email off, turn all these distractions that exist, even if you're working in an office space, put a sign on your door that says you're out of office at this point in time, and set that timer for 47 minutes. And when the timer goes off at minute 47, go ahead and re-enter into the world of chaos. Turn your phone back on, turn your email back on. Heaven forbid we might take a bio break before the next meeting that we go into. But those 47 minutes for me, when I'm able to do that, and I'm not always perfect at it, become those most productive minutes. Look, multitasking is a myth, and entrepreneurs believe they're great at it, okay? Leaders, especially those type A personality types, it doesn't have to be entrepreneur, but leaders, they believe they're fantastic at multitasking. But the science doesn't say that. It says nowhere that we can really do that, especially as we start to look at a little bit more mature, more seasoned like me. Our brains don't work the same way. And if we get distracted from a task we're working on, it's been proven that somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 20 minutes, that once you come back to that task after you've gone somewhere else or try to work on something else, that it takes you 12 to 20 minutes to get back on that task. It's just very difficult.
And you stack those up over a day, over a week, over a month. Yeah.
It's just brutal. And again, I think, you look at it, those bootstrapping entrepreneurs that are early in their journey, the earlier they can recognize that, not just the idea about multitasking, but that, you have the same 86,400 seconds in a day that everybody else does. You don't get to stop the clock like a football coach can stop the clock and call timeout. You've got to be very disciplined with the time that you use and understand all the areas, back to that scorecard mentality, of life that are important to you. Yes, your work is very important, but that's just one of 6 areas that I talk about. Your faith, your finances, your fitness, your friendship, and your fun that you go along with those things as well have got to be scheduled into your calendar on an intentional basis so that all those things don't start to fall away, especially on the relationship side. It becomes too easy to say, in the rationalization of, I need to make money, and so I have to stay spending time at the business. I don't have time to be with my family. Then that's something that, you're juggling that glass ball around. You can find some different work, but you can't find different family, and you don't want to be sitting around 25 years from now saying, I just wish I would have spent more time with my family.
I mean, it's a common tale you hear of the entrepreneurs, like, I did this all for you, and the kids are like, I just wanted you to be home.
Absolutely. Exactly right. Exactly right.
You spent years helping others, lead and whatnot. What is the one, or I would say, what is one of the hardest leadership lessons that you had to learn personally?
Oh, wow. So, that's a great question. That's a consultant's response, so that I can sit and really mull on the question, partly because I've had so many challenges that I've faced and had to overcome inside of my leadership. So let's set the family and the time aside for a minute. We've talked about that for a good bit of time. One of the things that I know leaders are very weak at, especially entrepreneurs or young small business owners or officers, they have a really tough time learning how to delegate. Ultimately, I call it prioritization more than delegation, but it's prioritizing those things that have the biggest impact. And when I think about how we prioritize, because you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want. And as entrepreneurs, we try to do everything. But we've got to get better at this delegation process if we're going to be able to learn. And so I think about this on a regular basis. We should be looking at our calendar items and looking at these 5 Ds that I call it of prioritization. What are the things that I talked about this a little bit earlier, stop doing? Well, the D is, what do I need to deselect and not do any more at all? It's not really having an impact on any of my key metrics inside of my organization. In fact, it's pulling me away from what's really important. If I can't deselect it, then what can I defer? Can I defer it out for 90 days? In essence, procrastinating on purpose. I'm going to defer it out. It doesn't have to be done right now. I'm going to push this out just a little bit. And we can't do that with everything, but we can do that with a lot of things that we have on our plate. And if I can't deselect it, I can't defer it, then who in my team can I delegate this activity to? Because I've got to be able to start developing others to help myself be more successful and allow me the time that I need to do to work on my business and grow my business. So deselect, defer, delegate are 3 to start out. The 4th one would be, if I have to maintain it on my plate, then how do I deconstruct it? How do I break it down and get more focused and eliminate? Is it this 60-minute meeting? What would I need to do, improve the agenda, improve the performance, so that I could do it in 30 minutes? I want to deconstruct that meeting to be able to get the same amount of work done in a shorter period of time to get some of my time back. Those are the 4 that we've got to become really good at. And I know that I was really bad at stopping things, and I thought everything was important and had to be done all the time. And it was easier for me to do it to myself than it was to delegate to others. Now, deconstruct is something that I get to be pretty good at, but ultimately, if I can't do one of those 4 things, that 5th D is I got to do it.
Yeah.
I got to put it in my calendar, and I got to get it done. I got to block the time off of my calendar to get those things done. So I think that prioritization is something that is so critical to new leaders, finding off what are the most important daily, weekly, and monthly disciplines they need to do to be successful, and then to be ruthless at pruning the things that are not adding value to what they're trying to do. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. And we get people that have great ideas inside of organizations to do good things. But we've got to become better at saying no to good things so we can say yes to many of the great things that we want to do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And the more you talk, the more I think like, wow, having a coach is pretty necessary in order to stay on top of all this, as well as have somebody to hold your feet to the fire, hold you accountable. I know it, with the gym, either having a personal trainer or at least going with a friend or somebody who's going to be meeting you there to kind of hold you accountable helps you that much more stick to a program, stick to actual change. And again, like you said, we're so distracted by so many things, and it's so easy to just want to kick the can or be like, I'll start on Monday, but
right. Yeah, exactly right. I had one of my teachers, one of my mentors, one of the quotes that he said to me one time, it wasn't to me, it was in a group of us, but he said, I am not here to comfort the afflicted. I'm here to afflict the comforted. And that's really what it's all about in terms of, we as leaders, we'll get pretty comfortable in where we are. And so if you can find that accountability person, if it is a coach, great. If it's a friend that you can then work with to help hold you accountable as well, that you can do this project together or do that workout together, whatever it is, fantastic. But find some accountability to hold. It's not to say, again, back to the motivation. Your motivation, if you try to do it on your own, is going to wane. If you don't have a clear purpose in terms of why you're doing things, that'll definitely make it more difficult. But if we want to get better in a certain area, then sometimes we need to get a coach. And even those coaches can be found in books. You see, on the video, you see the books behind me. You've got books behind you as well. Those, if you become a reader and learn to take one or two things from each of the books that you read to help impact you as well and to give you the disciplines that you need. Many different ways to find that. Podcasts just like this, the Friday Habit Podcast, and listening to others who have been on this journey before. We're not unique when we come to learning that we have trouble staying motivated as individuals. We're designed to be in survival mode, and so we've got to shake ourselves out of that at times.
Speaking of books, do you have a one that you are like, hey, or maybe a couple books that you're like, these are really good? I know you mentioned at the top of the podcast, John Maxwell's 26 principles? Or
21 irrefutable laws of leadership. That's one I've read 3 times and probably the one I've given away the most as a leader. But there's probably a couple others that have had a pretty big influence on me. One of those is The Power to Change. I just recently finished that book from Craig Rochelle, and I got to tell you, to me, and I'm a big James Clear fan in Atomic Habits, but this book inside of what he talked about with regards to the power to change and how we need to focus on the who before we focus on what we do and some of the things that he talks about, just a very impactful book that's been there for me. From my health standpoint, I went on a journey a couple of years ago to start to really improve my sleep, as well as some of my other healthy habits to get going. But The Power of Ownership by Justin Rotlingshofer is a phenomenal book as well. He outlines some great habits in there, but also some key metrics that you can measure that are going to help you from a longevity standpoint in terms of your own personal health. That has been impactful for me. And I got to tell you, entrepreneurs, if you're specifically talking to entrepreneurs here, if you have not read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, it's a book that is a must read.
I haven't read that one
for entrepreneurs on the journey.
So I'll have to check it out.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend that book for entrepreneurs in terms of, what are those things, back to that prioritization, where are those areas that we need to invest our time? Because look, we'll continue to work as individuals and entrepreneurs as hard as we can to get things done. And if we don't learn to, in essence, find a way to delegate some of those things we shouldn't be doing, that we can, determine what our hourly rate is, if you will, of the value of our work, and start to have others help us out in the journey in spaces where they can do it better than us, or at least 80% as good as us. We're going to have trouble with our time, and we're just going to be tired. Yeah. That's a must.
Two things kind of come to mind as we wrap up this conversation is these two ideas of, putting on your own oxygen mask before you help somebody else, and then your team or the people that are following you are only going to rise up to whatever standard you personally are setting for yourself.
Yes, sir. John Maxwell's book, one of those laws is the law of the lid, that your team can only rise as high as you do as a leader as well. He calls it a lid, and he talks about his hand runs up against it. And again, if you're not careful with that as a leader and continue to develop yourself, and you have team members that are developing faster than you, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to fall back because they're going to get tired of trying to outrun you and doing things more that, especially if you're the owner, or they're going to leave the organization even worse. And something they're going to start to do it on their own because they're not going to tolerate not being able to grow.
I love that. Well, listen, thanks so much for hanging out with me and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and experience with me and our audience. If someone wanted to connect with you or follow you online, what's the best place to get in contact?
Mark, I appreciate the opportunity. Look, you're over 200 on this. This is phenomenal, just the perseverance you've had from a podcasting
5
standpoint.
years.
And the message that you're getting out there is so important. So you're adding value. Thank you for the opportunity to share just a little bit of what I've been through over the years. If folks want to get in touch with me and learn more, they can go to CoachJohnGallagher.com. That's my website. From a social media standpoint, LinkedIn is where I hang out the most. They can find me there as well, Coach John Gallagher. So look forward to connecting with them.
Love it. And I always like to leave somebody with a goal or something to think about and focus on starting Monday morning. And if you could give that one piece of advice for someone to say, hey, start doing this or stop doing this, what would be the one thing that you would tell them to do starting Monday morning?
Mark, I'm going to try to do this real quick. I went through a weight training program and I lost a bunch of weight and I plateaued. And I went through with my trainer nutritionist, said, well, what are you eating? And I started to go through it. She said, you just need to stop eating French fries. Leaders, stop eating French fries. And I'm not talking about the French fries as the food. There are things in your life. Just start with one small thing. There are habits that you have that are not contributing to your success. If you're scrolling on your phone 4 hours a day, set yourself a goal to get down to 3 hours a day. Don't totally go off of it and go cold, but start with something small and stop eating French fries.
I love it. Thank you. All right, you heard it here. Stop eating French fries. That's right. Well, hey, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and click that little thumbs up icon so you get notified every single time that an episode goes live. And if you go to thefridayhabit.com, you can find show notes for this episode and ways to get in touch. At the bottom of the page, you can download our guide to the Friday Habit system that's going to help you set aside one full day each week dedicated working on your business instead of always in your business. You can reach us at hello@thefridayhabit.com. And until next time, live every day like it's Friday.